Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'a sunnatahu ila yawmiddin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome for another session of short lessons and benefits derived from the book Adab and Mufrad. We start today with chapter 381. There is wisdom in some poetry. Khad ibn Kaysan said, I was with Ibn Umar when Iyad bin Haytham got up and said to him, shall I recite some of my poetry, Ibn al-Faruq? He said, yes, but only recite good poetry to me. He recited and he came to something which Ibn Umar disliked, then he told him to stop. Mutarrif said, I accompanied Imran ibn Hussein from Kufa to Basra. Very rarely did he arrive at a place without reciting some poetry to me. He said, allusions give great scope for avoiding lies. So the commentary mentioned here by Shaykh Hussein al-Awaish Hafidhullah explained that this is when one is constrained to do that to put off lies. But if there is no need or dire necessity, then no, it is not permissible. Its connection with this chapter heading is that poetry involves illusions which prevent lying. Ubay ibn Ka'b, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, said, some poetry contains wisdom. So that means that not all forms of poetry is vain and evil. Some poems involve things that affirm the truth and exhort towards good deeds. Likewise, speech. It is lawful when it contains good and unlawful when it contains vain and evil things. Al-Aswad ibn Suray said, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, I have praised my Lord, the mighty and exalted, in some words of praise. He said, your Lord loves praise. He did not say anything more. So this shows that the Prophet ﷺ approved of poetry that praises Allah, the mighty and sublime, since such is from wisdom. Abu Hurairah said, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, it is better for a man to fill his belly with oozing pus than to fill it with poetry. So Shaykh Hussein al-Aisha Hafidhullah explains, the meaning is that when poetry becomes dominating on the person, engrossing him so much that he gets busy away from the Quran and other sciences of the Sharia and the remembrance of Allah, then it is prohibited, no matter the kind of poetry it is. But if the Quran and Hadith and other sciences of the Sharia are the predominant, then there is no harm in memorizing some poetry alongside, since his bowels would not have been filled with poetry. Imam Muhammad al-Amin al-Shanqiti gave a similar explanation of the Hadith, and we can kind of relate to this when it comes to people listening to nasheeds all the time, where every day nasheed, no durus and no Quran. This is a wake-up call. Al-Aswad ibn Suray said, I was a poet, and I went to the Prophet ﷺ and said, shall I recite to you hymns of praise, which I have, or words or hymns or melody of praise, which I have composed to glorify my Lord? He said, your Lord loves praise. He did not say anything more to me. Aisha said, may Allah be pleased with her, Hassan ibn Thabit asked the Messenger of Allah ﷺ for permission to mock the idol worshippers of Mecca. The Prophet ﷺ said, and what of my relation to them? He said, I will distinguish you from them as hair is taken from dough. So it means here, to criticize this belief and its people is certainly wise and praiseworthy when it's done with the limits of the Sharia. Similarly, the Hadith is evidence that it's not allowed to compose satires that bring the noble and pious to disrepute. This is certainly not wise. Another, chapter 382, the good in poetry is like the good in speech, and some of it is bad. Ubay ibn Ka'b said, the Prophet ﷺ said, some poetry contains wisdom. Abdullah ibn Amr said, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, poetry is in the same category as speech. The good of it is like good speech, and its bad part is like bad speech. And Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, mentioned, or used to say, poetry is both good and bad. Take the good and leave the bad. Some of the poetry of Ka'b bin Malik was related to me. It included an ode of 40 verses and some with less than that. Chapter 383. One who is asked to recite poetry. Ash-Sharid said, the Prophet ﷺ asked me to recite the poetry of Umayyah ibn Abi Salt. I recited, the Prophet ﷺ said, hey, go on, until I have recited 100 lines. The Prophet ﷺ said, he, that poet, had been about to become a Muslim. Chapter 384. One who dislikes something being obsessed by poetry. Ibn Abbas said about the verse, the poets, those in error follow them. Haven't you seen them wandering in every valley, and how they say what they do not? That it was abrogated and exemption was made. He said, except those who believe and do good work and remember Allah much and vindicate themselves after they have wronged, those who do wrong will come to know by what a great reverse they will be overturned. Ash-Shu'ara, chapter 26, verses 22, 224, 227. So we see, brothers and sisters, from this, that, as a recap, that poetry is like speech. There is good, there is bad. If you do something for good, it is good. If you use it for the bad and sinful, it's bad and sinful. But it shows us here as well that there should be a limit. If we find ourselves listening to spoken word or poetry or some kind of nasheeds more than we are listening to the Quran or more than we are listening to Islamic lectures, then we know here we have an issue that has to be rectified. And I ask Allah to make that easy for all of us, inshallah. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.